Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm continuing my Ways to Travel in Your 20s series, and I'm talking about how I went to yoga teacher training in Costa Rica. I just think traveling with an intention, whether it's for a group trip or if it's from a specific activity, is one of the best ways you can go if you're a little bit nervous about solo traveling, but you still want to force yourself outside your comfort zone because you know you're going to have common interests with everyone that you're with. Because you know you're going to have common interests with everyone that you're with because you're all there for the same reason and you're just able to connect on a deeper level. For me, yoga teacher training was an incredibly transformative experience, and I could not recommend it enough if it is something that you want to pursue. You don't even have to go into yoga teacher training with the idea of wanting to be a teacher after. You can just go in with the idea of wanting to further your practice, which is what I did. But once I left, I felt confident enough that I could practice because all the people around me supported me so much and showed me that I had the capability to teach if I wanted to, even though I was really scared. And so if you want to learn more about my experience at yoga teacher training, let's get into the video. I had been thinking about going to yoga teacher training for probably about a year to a year and a half before I actually did it. It was just always something that was on my mind, but I could never commit to doing it because one, it is a little pricier. And two, it's a big time commitment because you have to be able to take a month off work or a month off whatever you're doing in order to go and do it if you want to go somewhere instead of doing it at a local studio. But I always knew that it was something that I was feeling called to do, to be able to share my yoga with everyone else and just being able to expand my practice. I kind of went into it not even really wanting to teach when I came out of it. I just wanted to grow in my practice and really learn about like the theory side of yoga and just put myself in a situation where I was going to have to grow and become more confident. Because I have a problem where when I am not good at something or I'm not perfect at something right away, I automatically give up and I just feel like I'm not fit for whatever I'm doing. So making myself be a yoga instructor when I didn't feel like I was qualified enough to do it was something that really pushed me outside of my comfort zone. So when I officially decided to go to training, I would say that I had been practicing for about 2 years at that point. And I was confident in my ability because like I knew what I was doing, but I couldn't do anything super advanced when it came to yoga. And I really do think that was across the board with everyone that I was with. We kind of spanned all the way from beginner to expert in the yoga world. So it really did not matter your skill level at all. No matter what level you practice at, yoga is yoga. And we're all learning the basics when you're getting your 200-hour yoga certification. It's not anything extreme and it's all postures you've done before. So first I really just wanted to start with the basics, and that's breaking down what school I went to, what the price was, and all the basic facts around the yoga teacher training that I went to. So the school that I went to was the Nexus Institute, and it was in Nosara, Costa Rica. This place is dreamy. It's a beautiful house, like a 10-minute walk to the beach, and everyone that I met was incredible. The tuition and accommodation for this came out to be about $3,000. But honestly, that's about average for what any yoga teacher training is going to be not in Costa Rica. I think my home studio around here has yoga teacher training for about $2,000 to a little bit over $2,000. And so now adding in that you're going to be in Costa Rica, I think it's so worth it if you have the time. The demographics of the people that I was with at this school was, I think there was like about 25 of us, which I loved because it was such a small school and we all got to know each other so well by the end of it. And most people were between the ages of 20 to 40, I would say, which I know is a big gap, but it wasn't anything crazy old and wasn't anything crazy young. They said that the group that I went with was one of the younger groups they've ever had. So a lot of the people that I was hanging out with were 19 to probably 30, within that range. And then there was kind of another group that was like slightly older, but we still talked to everyone and had all these great conversations with everyone from all aspects of life. And most of the people were from the US and Canada, but then we also had people from Chile, Costa Rica, the UK, Netherlands, Spain. Honestly, it was very multicultural, but the school did speak English. It was kind of cool though, because a couple of the people whose English wasn't their first language ended up teaching their classes in their native language, and that was just really cool to see. Next, let's go into accommodation for the place. So like I said before, it's this beautiful mansion house that has a bunch of bedrooms. There's a beautiful yoga shala up on the top floor that's open to basically the jungle up there. Like we would be practicing and then you would see monkeys swinging by if you looked up, and you can always hear the birds chirping. It was really magical to practice yoga there. But we also had access to 2 kitchens, there was a pool, there was wraparound balconies, there was like outdoor and indoor living spaces, and we all just hung out there all the time. They offered a couple different types of rooms, and obviously they differed in price. So the first was a dorm room, which is what I stayed in, and there was about 10 of us in the dorm, and I honestly really loved it. The dorm room was definitely filled with the younger people in this program, and so most of us were in our early 20s, and we all just got along so well and were able to bond and have basically feeling like summer camp vibes, just being able to chat and get ready together and hang out, which I really appreciated. They also have private rooms with their own bathrooms, and then they had like casitas, so like they're basically like these little mini houses, and the price goes up from there. They have everything on their website. When it comes to transportation, you obviously have to fly to Costa Rica. So for me, that was flying from Miami into Liberia, and then from Liberia you have to get a I think it was like a 3-hour taxi, but you end up setting up the shuttle ahead of time, so it's really easy. They have your name on like a little piece of paper, and you find them, and then they bring you to Nexus, and I think it was only like $50 for the whole 3-hour shuttle. So even though that might sound intimidating if you're not a well-known traveler or a well-practiced traveler, I promise you it's pretty self-explanatory, and the people at Nexus are so helpful. I remember my flight was delayed, like extremely delayed, and they were able to talk to the shuttle service for me and be able to figure it all out, so like they knew what was going on. For other parts of transportation, most places in Nosara you can get to just by walking. It's not a very big town. Everyone that has been there, you know where everything is. It's so small, and there's such a community aspect to it, so we really walked most places. But then if we had to go somewhere a little bit further, we would take tuk-tuks or tuk-tuks, whichever way you say it. Basically like these like open air taxis that you would take to different areas of town. And in Costa Rica they accept US dollars, or oh my gosh, what is the money called in Costa Rica? I gotta look this up. I should know this. Colones. Yes, so they also take colones. I honestly just went with US dollars, and then whenever you pay in US dollars, they'll usually give you the change back in colones, and that's how you can kind of have their like currency, but they accept either. For the actual curriculum itself of the program that I was in, I really loved it. Our teachers were amazing. It was hosted by a couple. Their names are Janelle and Horace, and they are so knowledgeable in everything yoga, basically. Janelle is like getting her second doctorate or something in yoga studies. Like, she is so knowledgeable and just a really cool person to talk to if you're trying to learn about yoga theory. And then Horace is also just as knowledgeable. They both learned in Costa Rica, and they have really cool backstories once you get to know them about how they got into the practice itself. And you truly are living in their home. At least when I was there, they still had a room in the house, so we were just existing together, and you were living with your teachers, and you just all got so close because you were living in close quarters with each other, which I really appreciated. And they were actually building their house when I was there, and it's finally done now. And so they have a house still on the property. It's just like right next door. So they're still around all the time, but just now they have their own personal space, which I'm really happy for them about, because we can be a little much sometimes. There were also 2 other assistant teachers when we were there, and that was Alicia and Kaylin, and they were both incredible, and they basically just became a part of the group. Even though they were our instructors, we just got along so well, and they really just helped everyone feel at home because they knew the area a lot better than we did. For the curriculum itself, we learned everything from posture training to theory to breath work and meditation practices, so that when we got done and we left the program, we were pretty much certified in all of those things and could be confident teaching every aspect of yoga. Because one of my main goals that when I went there I really wanted to focus on was the more spiritual side of yoga, and it really helped. Everything that I learned there really opened my eyes up to this whole other half of yoga that's not really talked about much in Western yoga practices. Because in Western yoga, yoga is exercise, when really it's more of just like the state of being and a state of mind. And so I'm so grateful for all the teachings that I learned. And you also get this whole packet booklet that tells you everything with different postures, different sample classes, how to structure your class, basically everything you would need to know about yoga. And they really had a heavy focus on the Sanskrit. It wasn't mandatory that you knew it, but we really did go over it every single day so you could have a better understanding of that language. And how the whole program was set up is the first week you would learn posture training for the first half of the day, and then the second half of the day would be theory, or vice versa, depending. At the end of the week, you have your first practice teach, which seems crazy, but I promise you they prepare you so well. They give you this whole handout about how to structure your class for a 30-minute class, and you really just have to put in your own flows, and they tell you exactly how many minutes each section of your yoga practice should be. From there, you go into the second week. It's pretty much the same, but you get deeper into the more spiritual side of yoga and learning more about the theory. And then you have a 45-minute practice teach. And then the last week is mostly just everyone sharing their full 1 hour practice teaches. And you get to go to everyone's classes, and it is just a really fun experience because by that point, everyone feels so confident and comfortable, and getting to see how different everyone's classes are, even though we all learned the exact same way, and just seeing everyone's interpretation of like what we had learned and how they want to bring their yoga into the world. I personally think the way they had it set up was amazing. You still had a little bit of free time, but you were also really heavily learning yoga. I think I have a sample of the schedule in here. Let me see. A pretty average day, I would say, is I was waking up at about 5:36, and then we'd have yoga from 7:30 to 9, which is just like a yoga practice for us to just be able to practice ourselves, not actually like learning. And then you'd have a little break to get breakfast, which they provided breakfast. And then from 10 to 12:30, you would have class. And so that could either be posture training or learning how to sequence a class or learning how to pick music for your class or anything. Then you would have a lunch break, and then you would go and have another class from 2 to 4. And then you'd have your dinner break. And then every other day you had a night class, which the night classes were talking about anatomy or watching videos. And they were just really chill nights. Everyone would throw on their PJs, and then we'd go upstairs into the yogashala and watch things on the projector. Or it was really cozy vibes, and it was really enjoyable to have those night classes. And they were only about an hour and 30 minutes each. We learned things about like different shavasana techniques and ways to meditate, and it was just really cool to unwind that way before you went to bed. There were also different ceremonies that we had of like cleansing and fire ceremonies. We would do different journaling practices to start the day. It was just honestly a wellness retreat on steroids, because then you were also learning how to host your own yoga class and wellness, not retreat, but wellness class. When it comes to yoga theory, we learned about the chakras, we went into the bandhas, pranayama, we went into yoga history, the different koshas, the cycle of transformation, the yoga sutras, witness consciousness, all these different things that I had no idea of. They were words that I had heard before, but I never knew their true meaning. And you kind of just have everything in this book now that you can always go back. And I had a running list the whole time I was there of more theories and different yoga practices that I really wanted to look into and wanted to learn more about because it's so interesting. For food during the program, there's an option to have a catered vegan lunch for I think $250 for the whole 3 weeks that you're there. And I personally think it was worth it because you're so tired throughout the day because you're just constantly practicing yoga, and when you're not practicing yoga, you're trying to explore. So the last thing you want to think about is having to cook food. And the food was honestly really good. It was all catered and it was delicious meals, and it was a lot of like Costa Rican dishes that was really cool to try. So I definitely think it's worth it, but it's not mandatory. I had a lot of friends that were just cooking their own lunch, and they would just go to the grocery store and it was totally fine. Dinners, you're on your own. But I will say that there's always a lot of leftovers from lunch, so we would eat those and then kind of add extra stuff to it if there wasn't enough or if we wanted something more. And then if we didn't want leftovers, we would just cook up pasta or have anything. The grocery stores are pretty close. There's one in walking distance and another one that's a little bit cheaper that we would tuck to. And then some nights we'd also go and get dinner together, so you will be fed and you don't have to spend a lot of money to get fed. Overall though, this experience for me was well worth it. I want to go back and get my 500 hour. I don't even teach that often. I've taught a couple classes since I've been back, but for me, it's just about the experience and meeting these like-minded people who also appreciate yoga in the same way that you do, and getting to find these connections with people, and then experiencing a new place all while you're at it, because I had never been to Costa Rica before when I went. And there was just so much time for self-reflection and really just learning about myself, which I really loved. But we also still had some fun. We would go to the beach together. We went surfing one day. We went out on the weekends. It's not all strict schooling. And some people would go on different excursions and stuff. There was also optional workshops that you could do if you wanted to work on inversions or different arm balances. So there really were so many ways to make the trip your own. I'm still in contact with all the girls that I shared my dorm room with, and we have a whole group chat that we talk in honestly often, because we all love each other so much and we got along so well and we lived with each other for 3 weeks. So of course you're gonna form a connection with them. And I actually just saw 2 of my yoga teacher friends in June when I went to Charleston, because that is where they live. And so it's now just creating these connections with people all over the world. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope maybe you're inspired to go to your own yoga teacher training. Even if it's not across the world, you can still just do one in your own hometown. But maybe just look into this if it's something that you're wanting to do to expand your practice and maybe even see a little bit of the world too. But I will see you guys next Friday for my next video.